Cambridge International as level. Psychology. Paper 1 approaches, issues, and debates. 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses of all studies.
Question 9. Evaluate the study by Dementia Clayton sleeps and dreams in terms of 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses. At least one of your evaluation point must be about generalization, 10 marks. The answer is there are many strengths of the study by Dementia Clayton sleeps and dreams. One of the strengths was that there may be differences in dreaming of men and women or between the way they narrate their dreams. It was useful in terms of generalizability that there were both genders used in the sample. Another strength of the study was that the participants were not told about their EEG patterns or whether their eyes were moving or in order to avoid demand characteristics. For example, if they expected to remember more detailed dreams in REM sleep, they may have made great efforts to do so. On the contrary, there are also many weaknesses of this study. One of the weaknesses is at the start of participants were asked how long they had been dreaming, and although they were roughly accurate, this task was too difficult, so the method was changed. Another weakness of this study was differences in the narrative length, dependent depended not only on the length of the REM phase but also how expressive the participant was. For example, females may express more, making these reports more subjective and gender biased. Question number 10. Evaluate the study by Yamamoto et al. Chimpanzee helping in terms of 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses. At least one of your evaluation points must be about laboratory experiments, 10 marks. There are many strengths of this study by Yamamoto et al. One of the strengths is that it was a laboratory experiment, hence the conditions of the IV were manipulated, the environmental control and behavior was recorded on a videotape. This scientific method establishes cause and effect. Another strength of this study is that the experiment used a repeated maze design. This design meant that the chimpanzees participated in both or all the conditions of the study, reducing any risk of individual differences and increasing validity. There are also many weaknesses of this study. For example, the study had low ecological validity because it was conducted in an artificial environment. The chimpanzees were given tools and tasks that they will not normally use in their natural environment. Another weakness is that the participants used in this study were 5 chimpanzees and came from the same research institute. This means it was a very small sample that is low in generalizability. The sample of captive chimpanzees is not representative of wild chimpanzee populations. Question number 9. Evaluate the study by Ventura et al. Aggression in terms of 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses. At least one of your evaluation points must be about the use of quantitative data. 4 marks. The study by Ventura et al. Has many strengths, and one of the strengths is that the method used was a laboratory experiment. Hence, it was possible to control extraneous variables, such as ensuring there was a possibility that children in any condition should show aggressive behavior. This was done by showing them nice toys but not allowing them to play with those toys. Another strength was the pre-testing of the children's aggression was a factor that increased validity because it ensured that differences between the condition were due to the models and not due to the individual differences between the children who happened to be in each group. There are also many weaknesses of this study. One of them is that quantitative data lacks detail, making it difficult to explain how behaviors occurred. So without qualitative data, it will be difficult to know whether the children imitated behavior as a result of social learning theory or demand characteristics. Another weakness of the study is the laboratory is not a natural environment for children, and the behavior that the children watched was not usual to be seen in real life. Question number 10. Evaluate the study by Severity and Silverman button phobia in terms of 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses. At least one of your evaluation points must be about self-reports, 10 marks. There are many strengths about the study by Severin Silverman button phobia. One of the strengths is that it was a case study. Hence, only one person was used, making it easier to gather in-depth data about the boy's phobia, what caused it, and specific details of treatment for his particular situation. Another strength of this study is that it is highly valid as the participant was studied over a period of time using several different methods of data collection. The researchers used standardized measures such as a Phoenix thermometer before, during, and after therapy. On the other hand, there are many weaknesses of the study. One of them is demand characteristics, which will be more obvious as the boy was fully aware that he was undergoing therapy with the intention of improving the phobic symptoms. This might have affected the ratings he gave to the different levels of exposure therapy. Another weakness was that working in a case study involves building rapport with the participant. There is less room for anonymity or objectivity. This means that there is a higher risk of bias which may compromise the validity of the study. Question 9. Evaluate the study by linear health false memory in terms of two strengths and two weaknesses. At least one of your evaluation points must be about independent measures. 10 marks. The answer is there are many strengths of the study by linear health false memory. One of them is that the method was a laboratory experiment as all of the participants were tested in a standardized environment and given the same questionnaires in each condition. Another strength is that the use of closed questionnaires with rating scales provides quantitative data which allow the comparisons between in the study session 1 and session 2 and even between experiment 1 and 2. There are also many weaknesses of the study by linear time. One of them is that the sample in the research consists of university students and introduces participant variables that could distort the outcomes of the research, reducing the validity of the research. Another weakness is that the students might react differently to the false information and be more impressionable than adult or child, to whom this study may not be generalizable. Question 9. Evaluate the study by Sastre and Singer to factors in emotion in terms of two strengths and two weaknesses. At least one of your evaluation point must be about the use of quantitative data. 10 marks. The answer is the study by Shastre and Singer has many strengths, and one of them is that it is a laboratory experiment which has exerted a large amount of control through their standardized procedure. For example, to the different conditions, they were able to deceive the participants to the real nature of the experiment and standardize the procedure as much as possible. Another strength of this study was the use of questionnaires as a method to operationalize the dependent variable was used to allow Sasser and Singer to further standardize the collection of data within the experiment. There are many weaknesses of the study as well. One of them is that no assessment was made of participants' mood before the injection to gain a baseline from which to measure any change as a result of the stage. Another weakness is that the sample consists only of male participants, which further impacts on our ability to generalize the results to females. Males could experience emotions differently to females, and this has been ignored in the research. There are many strengths of the Kenya health study. One of the strengths of the Kenya health study is that it was a laboratory experiment. The procedure was standardized, and there were many controls in the study, such as all participants were given the same items to rate in each condition. Therefore, it increases reliability. Another weakness is that the research has internal validity, as the research can be more confident that there are fewer confounding variables affecting the variables that are measuring. For example, data by FMLA. However, whereas the study has some weaknesses. One weakness from the study is that the sample in the research consists of right-handed females only and therefore introduces participant variables that could distort the outcomes of the research. Moreover, another weakness is that the results were not generalizable as only females were chosen for the research, so it is not for males and left-handed individuals. There are many strengths of the study by ended doodling. One of the strengths is that it was a lab experiment using an independent various design, so it was possible to control the extraneous variables. For example, ensuring that the participants were listening at a volume comfortable for them and using a recorded telephone message so that there were no differences in stress on the important words between conditions. Another strength is that the study collected quantitative data, the number of names and places recorded, which is an objective record of memory. On the other hand, the weakness of the study is that there is a risk of participant variables confounding the results as the amount of shapes the individuals shaded differed. Another weakness of the study is there was a risk of demand characteristics because some of the participants suspected a memory test, but they were roughly equal in each condition and did not actively try to remember it. So this is unlikely to have reduced validity. There are many strengths of the study by Baron Cohen. Amongst them, one of the strengths was it was a laboratory experiment, hence all the participants completed the task in a standardized way. This allowed many confounding variables to be controlled, for as all participants saw the same set of eyes for exactly the same amount of time. Another strength of the study is that the validity of the eyes test improved on previous versions due to the changes made, which have led to normal performance being significantly below the ceiling of the test. On the contrary, among many, one weakness is that it lacked ecological validity, as in everyday situation, a person's eyes would not be static and shown for a limited amount of time. So, any attempt to implement this would be flawed. Another weakness of this study is that the experimental sample of this research is small. Hence, when generalizing the results, we must know that the group may not be representative of all individuals who have been diagnosed with AS or HFA. There are many strengths of the study by Pelivan et al. One of the strengths is that it is a field experiment which used independent bias design. This makes it highly ecologically valid. As the participants were ordinary trained passengers, so they were unaware that they were taking part in an experiment, and they will behave naturally considering the environment as real. Another strength of the study was the experiment has high internal validity as the sample was large, making it generalizable to the general population. There were many weaknesses of the study by Pilliamin et al. As well, one of the weaknesses is that demand characteristics may have rise due to any participant being exposed to more than one condition, affecting the chances of helping the victim. Another weakness of the study is that there was less control over extraneous variables such as weather conditions or train delays, which could affect participant behavior and reduce validity of the study. There are many strengths of the study by Pepperberg Parity. One of the strengths is that the question order and materials were selected by a student with no connection to the project. Similarly, the trainer conducted the trials had not trained Alex on the same or different tasks. Both of these controls meant that the researcher bias was limited. Another strength is that the research involved collecting quantitative data in the form of correct responses to the same or different questions. This allows us to make an objective analysis of whether or not Alex was able to understand the abstract concepts. There are many weaknesses as well. One of them is that this study involved one male African grey parrot, making it a case study. As the parrot was a trained laboratory animal, it would be hard to say that it is representative of the general population of parrots in the wild. Another weakness is that there is that Alex suffered from boredom at times, hence they varied his training and testing schedules in order to control for repetitive behaviors that were unrelated to the learning process. There are many strengths of the study by Milker and Bridges. One of the strengths was that the method used in the study was a controlled observation. This means that it was possible to control extraneous variables in the environment, such as the age and appearance of the actor playing the stooge. This meant that the level of shock administered by each participant was based on whether the participant felt more or less sympathetic towards different stooges. For example, they might have been willing to deliver shocks to an older individual less. Another strength of the study is that the procedure was standardized throughout. The verbal prods used by the experimenter were the same each time, and each participant went through the exactly same experience, increasing the reliability. There were also many weaknesses of the study. One of them is that the participants in the study were all males and came from the same local area. This could mean that the sample was low in generalizability. It will be, for example, it will not be possible to predict that what differences there might be in the obedience levels between men and women. Another weakness of this study is that the participant may have responded to demand characteristics as they knew that they were being observed by the experimenter. Hence, they may have given more shocks to satisfy the experimenter. Whereas, if the experimenter observed through one-way mirror, the participant may quit their participation earlier.